there's some big new babies at the Wildlife Health Laboratory in Caldwell. The Yellowstone bison that were shipped there in March are beginning to give birth to calves that can weigh from 30 to 40 pounds. It's part of an experimental project testing the safety of a vaccine for brucellosis, a disease that causes livestock and some wildlife to abort their fetuses. Welcome to Incredible Idaho. I'm Wayne Walker. Each of the new calves is to be captured and tested within hours of birth to study how the vaccine affects the offspring. And as we'll see in our first story tonight, that's not an easy task with Mom around.
If we can get the mother to go down, I want to get on the bison first on its head, get its eyes covered, okay? If she throws me aside, that's okay, but once I have control of her, maybe one of you guys can...
It's sort of like a pregame pep talk. Wildlife veterinarian Dave Hunter and his team are discussing the game plan. The opposing squad, over 30 pregnant female bison, are big, husky players with massive shoulders.
Hopefully we won't need this game.
The veterinarian team, vastly outweighed and outnumbered, is counting on scouting reports and their superior equipment. But like any sporting match, the outcome is difficult to predict.
First rule is nobody gets hurt. No heroics required. Second rule is if you see something that bothers you about what's happening with the bison, don't be afraid to speak up.
Nothing like this project has ever been done before with wild bison, so each step in the process is a stride into new territory.
Okay, slow down, Emma.
All right, you getting ropes with lariat?
Got lariats, both of them?
Both of them. And thermometers, receptor atropine, ketamine backups. I think we're set.
It began last winter in Yellowstone National Park. Scientists estimate that at least half of the bison population carries the cattle disease called brucellosis. This year's severe weather drove large numbers of the buffalo out of the park to seek forage in lower elevations. Over 1,000 of these animals were either shot outright or sent to slaughter in compliance with state law. Although it's never been documented, the fear is that the big shaggy beast may transmit the disease to domestic livestock, threatening the brucellosis-free status of the beef industry in the states that surround the park. In March, 35 of the doomed animals were rounded up and then separated from the rest of the herd. Each was a female that had tested negative for brucellosis, and every one of them was pregnant. They had been rescued from the slaughterhouse to take part in an experimental project testing the safety of a vaccine for brucellosis. A third of the bison were injected with a harmless saline solution. These would make up the control group. The other two-thirds of the animals were vaccinated with 2 different dosages of the brucellosis vaccine RB51. Sporting ear tags and horn protectors made from garden hose, the big beasts were loaded into a cattle truck and hauled 900 miles from Gardner, Montana to the Wildlife Health Lab in Caldwell, Idaho. The federal government hopes to eliminate brucellosis in domestic livestock by 1998, and at that point, it is believed the greater Yellowstone ecosystem will remain the only area in the United States where the disease is still prevalent. But the hope is that eventually Yellowstone's wildlife will be free of the disease too. This safety study on the vaccine RB51 is one of the first small steps towards that goal.
Okay, remember, try not to move around much in the back of the rigs.
A new baby bison was born sometime in the night, and the little calf is doing its best to stick close to Mom. The scientists need to somehow separate the pair from the rest of the unruly herd, shoot a drugging dart into the mom, and then grab the calf. Blood will be drawn from both the cow and calf, and then various further samples will be taken from each animal. These will be tested to determine if the vaccine affected the birthing process.
Breakfast!
The tentative game plan is to drive the feeding trucks into the enclosure and then use them as a protective barrier to keep the rest of the herd away from the scientists as they work the cow and calf.
Are we having to be innovative as we go along? Absolutely. We are able to do a project similar to this in the field, to have 33 animals in close proximity and try to get the same information on a vaccine study has never been done. There are no ground rules. So as we go along, we have to make sure, first of all, that no person gets hurt, that we're not doing any damage to those cows or their calves, and that we can do it in a manner to justify us having these animals here. So every day we kind of change protocol to see what works easier. Is that her right there staring at us? Okay, now she's got her head down again. Okay, just kind of pull forward.
Research projects in Yellowstone Park have shown that when a bison is darted and begins to show signs of weakness, the rest of the herd tends to rally round the stricken individual, a situation the veterinarian team is trying to avoid today.
If I had the other gun, it would be easy, but this is a little CO2 gun, so it doesn't make much of a disturbance.
After an hour of slowly moving around the enclosure, both the bison and the truck are in good position for a shot. But Dave's concerned that the dart gun is not pumping properly.
Okay, I'm just going to try it anyway here. Oh, it just dropped. This gun's leaking. Okay, well, let's go back and reconnoiter.
Call it halftime, and so far, the score is definitely in favor of the bison. But in the second half, the veterinarian team gets a big break. The baby bison has wandered alone into one of the holding pens, and within minutes, Dave Hunter has the bawling calf in his arms.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Okay.
The team springs into action, worried that the calf's calls will alert the mom.
Okay, we'll get our samples real quick.
The veterinarians begin to take their samples as a little male protests.
Well, one of the objects or goals we have for the project on the safety portion of the project is to make sure the vaccine is a live bacteria. Make sure the vaccine does not cause any problems to the dams or the mothers or the calves. Okay.
When all the samples are taken, the little guy is released.
Well, the mother will come back in for him.
Mom's on the way, and the first stressful day of testing newborn calves is over.
Ooh, he wasn't as weak as I thought. He was actually a pretty heavy old boy. Okay, I think our job's done for the day. I think I'll go home and probably die of a slow, hypertensive cerebral aneurysm. What do you think?
Three weeks later, processing newborns and their moms has become routine. Both sides are a little more accustomed to the rules of the game. By now, all but a few of the cows have given birth. The veterinarian team has perfected the darting technique, and as for the bison herd, well, they've learned to ignore the whole process, placidly feeding while the scientists work the mom and new calf. There's been a few aborted fetuses, a couple of stillbirths, and several weak calves died shortly after being born. But until all the tests are in, there is no way of determining whether these cases were due to the vaccine. So for now, the game stands at a tie. The real victory will be the discovery of a safe vaccine that's an effective instrument in finally eliminating the disease brucellosis in our nation's wildlife. There's no question that Idaho's native bull trout population has been on the decline. Today, bull trout occupy only the far corners of their original habitat. For years, they were considered a nuisance fish. In fact, in the early part of this century, there was actually a bounty on bull trout. But times change, and now researchers are conducting studies to learn how best to restore Idaho's bull trout population. There are worse things than spending a warm spring morning on Lucky Peak Reservoir.
Yeah, the sun's coming up pretty quick. Looks like it's already on the beach over there.
Sparkling water and warm sunshine. It appears research biologist Brian Flatter has the ideal assignment. Drive around in a fishing boat, throw out your nets in the golden light of early morning, and wait to catch some of Idaho's native bull trout. Yeah, there are worse things. For example, try the same assignment in mid-December. Let's see. Drive around in a fishing boat.
Oh, they're warm. They look frozen, but they're warm.
So it's a bit chilly, but we still have that early morning sunshine. Although it's not quite the same when you have to shake the ice chips off as you pull your net. But the objective remains. Catch as many bull trout as possible, mark them, record pertinent data, and then follow them to see how they live, where they go, and when they spawn. But forget the snow and ice. Let's return to that warm spring morning. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that's much better.
Dad and I have been coming out probably at least 2 days a week since October, all winter long. It's kind of nice to do this stuff when the boat's not full of ice.
The research project is a joint effort of the Idaho Department of Fish and Game and the Federal Bureau of Reclamation. It depends on volunteers. A regular is Brian's dad, Charlie, who has become an expert at extracting squawfish and suckers from the mesh web of a gill net. This morning, 4 of the big nets are being set in various spots below Arrow Rock Dam, the separation point between the 2 reservoirs.
The bottom of the net sinks, and the top of the net has floats on it to hold everything open. It's 150 feet long, and we'll set it out, and the fish will come down the bank, and the way we set them, hopefully we'll catch the fish as they're cruising along the shoreline. They'll swim into the net, and then we'll come back a half hour later and pull the nets out and get the fish out before they die.
This spring, they're working Lucky Peak Reservoir to discover if bull trout pass through the dam, and so far, about a dozen fish marked last winter in Arrow Rock Reservoir have been recaptured in Lucky Peak.
Yeah, so basically what's happening, those fish are just coming right through those pipes and swimming up close to the dam, shooting through those pipes, and ending up in Lucky Peak. I don't know how they live through that, but somehow they do. I guess I like this fishing spot a lot better than the bull trout do.
Research suggests that dams may be a contributing factor in the decline of the species. For example, in the Boise River system, once they arrive in Lucky Peak, there's no escape and no place for the fish to reproduce. Other contributing factors to the bull trout's demise are land use practices and deteriorating water quality. The fish need clean, cold water to survive.
Got us a bull trout. First one of the day.
The fish is in good shape. It's placed in a live well to be processed later when all the nets have been pulled for the day.
Looks a lot like a brook trout, but a brook trout has a lot different pattern on the top side here, and the dorsal fin on a brook trout has a lot of spots and stuff on it, so that's the main way.
In an effort to recover the population, the entire state has been closed to the harvest of bull trout. So it's important for Idaho's anglers to know the identifying characteristics of the fish. That way, if a bull trout is caught, it can be released immediately. Generally, a brook trout will be more colorful and will always have some sort of a black pattern on the top or dorsal fin. Bull trout, sometimes called Dolly Varden, tend to be more drab, olive-colored with pink spots. Most obvious is the absence of any black pattern on the dorsal fin. Along with the typical catch of whitefish, suckers, and squawfish, the next net yields a smallmouth that would make any bass fisherman proud.
That is a nice fish. And he'll be released alive, and hopefully some angler will come along and catch him on another day.
In the course of the day, 2 more bull trout are netted and added to the live well. Each will be measured,
Length 398,
weighed,
995,
and marked.
995 grams. We've basically we've spent about 3,500 hours of netting up on Arrow Rock, and in the process we've caught close to 400 bull trout. We've marked about 300 or so of those, and 464 millimeters.
Brian has added a sedative to the water. This calms the fish and makes them easier to handle. Each bull trout is injected with a small computer chip called a pit tag, or passive integrated transponder. If the fish is recaptured, this one was originally marked last winter in Arrow Rock Reservoir, a pit tag detector is passed under the belly of the fish and its personal identification number appears on the readout.
Yes.
This information can be used to estimate total population numbers in the reservoir and track movements.
So not a lot of marks on the fish, not too bad after going through the dam, just a little ding right there on his dorsal fin, but other than that, we caught him once, an angler caught him at least once, and still in good shape.
If this were a larger fish, Brian would surgically implant a radio transmitter like this in the body cavity. This allows biologists to follow the fish in the fall as they move into tributary streams to spawn. It's all part of an effort to learn more about what bull trout need to reproduce and survive.
So that when it comes down to making a big decision whether or not they're going to be listed or not, the Fish and Wildlife Service will have the best information that we can gather. So the department's been working real hard, and the governor's staff's been working real hard to come up with a plan that will enable the state to protect these fish and maintain them, and hopefully not do anything down the road that will endanger them anymore or cause population decline. So,
June 10th, 1997 is the designated date for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to announce whether they will propose listing bull trout under the Federal Endangered Species Act. This will be followed by a review period. No matter what the decision, it's important to remember that it took several decades for the bull trout population to get to this point of decline. Any type of recovery will also take time.
there he goes.
Anglers have expressed concern that if bull trout were to be listed under the Endangered Species Act, this would shut down a lot of favorite fishing spots. But the Fish and Game Department is confident that that can be avoided. And the real key is for anglers to identify and immediately release any bull trout they catch.
The kids are a special breed. They are very focused in what they choose to do.
Shooting is a sport that requires incredible concentration and dedication, traits usually associated with the maturity of adulthood. But in our next story, we'll meet some members of the Nampa Rod and Gun Club Junior Shooting Team, a group of talented youths whose commitment to the sport may surprise you.
They set a goal. They may want to hit the target 10 times that night. They don't stop until they reach that goal. And they may not reach it this week, or they may not reach it next month, but they keep going until they do. And this goes right into their personal life. These kids are usually very involved with the community. They're usually scholastically 3.5, 4-point students. They're well above average, and that's only because they get so focused. They're so determined.
Well, it's about average.
Average?
Average.
So, well, what's great?
It's a 96. It's okay. You can do better.
18-year-old Maureen St. Clair may call this average, but keep in mind this is a young woman who has qualified twice for the Nationals in the Junior Olympic program. Some of the best are right here on the junior shooting team. 14-year-old Jason Kennedy has brought home a gold medal from the Nationals this spring. And 16-year-old Madeline Bradford's skill with a pistol has attracted the attention of the military. The United States Army's marksmanship unit is hoping to recruit her into their ranks when she completes her education.
Through the Junior Olympic program, we have a state championship which qualifies them to go to the National Junior Olympic Championships in Colorado Springs. If they do well enough there, then they go on to join the National Junior Elite Team or Development Team, depending how high they place. And we do have several kids that have made that level.
Okay, try that one again. And Gabe, this time, a little follow through.
11-year-old Gabe Rostberg is one of the newest members of the team. When he expressed an interest in guns, his mom, Bobby, began investigating the options and ended up here.
Nice job.
They had a really nice setup here, and it's a really nicely controlled environment, and he can learn rules of gun safety, and I was just really pleased with the way the place operated.
We have to make sure that they have all of the safety classes. Hunter's Ed is an excellent place to start. They teach them the basics.
The kids are required to attend an additional safety class here at the club before they are allowed on the shooting line for the first time. It's all part of the maturing process. Even in the short 5 months that Gabe has been a part of the team, his mom has noticed changes.
In certain areas of his life, he's still a wild, crazy little boy. But in this area, when I remind him that this is very serious business and he's here for a purpose, he has a passion for it. He can't wait to come.
When we were out shooting the Bison story this month, we noticed that a fox family had taken up residence just outside the buffalo pen. And those red foxes are the subject of tonight's closing segment, Creature Feature. It's not unusual to find foxes in open areas like this. In fact, they prefer this sort of habitat to dense forests. Pups are born in the spring with their eyes closed, just like dogs, but in a few short weeks, they're playing outside the den. The average litter is about 4 to 5 young, and both parents take responsibility for raising them. At about 9 weeks old, the pups will begin to accompany their parents when they hunt. It doesn't take them long to learn. By fall, they'll be independent, and by the following spring, they may be parents themselves.